Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Smart RV Podcast. I'm John Vanek, mobile
And
RV tech
I'm
based out of Douglas County, Nevada.
and I'm Joe Symmes, mobile RV tech based out of Gulfport, Mississippi. John, how is it in Nevada?
Well, very hot here in August, early August, but probably not as humid as you have it in Gulfport, Mississippi.
Yeah, I see your heat and I raise you a humidity point or two. This is the time of year when it's not snowing, it's not cold, it's not even a breeze, it's just muggy.
Well, I love the arid high desert, 5,000 foot elevation of Douglas County, Nevada. So, Joe, tell us a little bit about our podcast. What are we going to be doing here? Is our episode one as we kick off the Smart RV podcast?
Yeah, no, thanks, John. Smart RV Podcast is going to be a collaboration between John and I, and it's for all RVers. And we'll probably rope in the interest of some mobile techs, and maybe once we hit it big, some industry insiders. We're going to talk about experiences we have on our RV calls. We're going to talk about some good and bad practices. We'll probably sneak in a tool of the week and a funny story here and there. But it promises to be a great adventure. And those of you who are catching up with us and want to come along for the ride, you'll have a great time.
So, we want to open up our episodes with a session called Beside the Pedestal. And these are some quick and easy tips that you might be familiar with if you have been in the RV community for a while. But even if you have been in the community for a while, you might not be familiar with some of these tips. And they'll certainly be helpful to the people that are just coming into the RV community. So, beside the pedestal, Joe, what's your tip of the week?
So, John, this week I was doing a little bit of work for a couple clients, and there I was beside the pedestal and realized, you know what? Here's a wonderful tip that's quick and easy. The city water inlet for all RVs, the hose hookup on the outside of your rig, is a national pipe thread, 3/4 inch hose bib, whatever you want to call it, screws right into the side of your rig, turn on the water, and you've got city water. The trouble is, those are always flat mounted right to the side of the RV, and it puts the hose in quite a bind. Some cheaper hoses can even kink and obviously cause you water pressure issues there, but it also puts a lot of undue stress and tension on that mount on the side of the RV. So my brilliant tip of the week is to get you one of those 90-degree fittings. You can find them in any home store. It doesn't need to be any RV specialty product. They make them in plastic. They make them in brass. Screw that on the side, male on one side, female end on the other. Screw it to the side of your RV and allows your hose to hang straight down off of that 90, relieving the pressure on the side of your rig and increasing your water flow. So it's a quick, easy, nice to have, no batteries needed. You're easy, beside the pedestal, tip of the week. What do you have for us?
Oh, that's a good tip. I'll actually throw in, I have a 45-degree adapter going into the rig. And that particular model has a valve on it also. So I can shut off water flow going into the rig if I need to or want to, if I'm going to be leaving the rig for several hours. And, it's a good way to prevent catastrophic water damage. If something blows up inside the rig while you're away, I can shut off the water, but it also relieves that strain pulling against the fitting. So, yeah, good point. Well, my tip of the week has actually to do with the pedestal itself.
The
And my
pedestal.
recommendation is that, if you're not familiar with this, whenever you're plugging your shore cord into the pedestal, if the pedestal is powered on, if the breaker switch is in the on position, there's a very good chance you can end up with arcing between the outlet and your plug. And doing that once or twice or 50 times or maybe 100 times probably isn't going to cause an issue. But you don't know the quality of the connection inside the plug. That's for sure,
Right.
because you have no clue how many people have been using that plug and how long that plug has been installed on the pedestal. But every time you do that, you can cause arcing, and that can end up damaging your shore cord. So the proper way to be connecting into your pedestal is shut off all the breakers on the pedestal, then plug in, and then power up the pedestal itself. And what I'll also do if I'm using, I carry uh, an EMS, Progressive Industries. So I plug that in first, give that power. That's going to give me all the readings in terms of voltage and watts and everything, make sure that the pedestal is safe. Then I will shut off the breakers again. I'll actually plug in my shore cord and then power up everything. So again, I'm not causing arcing between my EMS and my cord. It is a great way to preserve the integrity of your cord over time. So there's my tip of the week for beside the pedestal is properly using the
Yeah.
pedestal itself. Use the breakers and not just be plugging in and out. Your thoughts?
I love that. So, breaker's like an on-off switch, in other words, turn the power off, plug in, then turn it back on. Sounds like a much safer way to do it and easier on your own equipment. And that's really what they're designed for. So I love that. You guys in the high desert always thinking.
Well, you mentioned in the past too, but when it comes, you and your father also have a lot of electrical background. But you've mentioned that the breakers are not really designed like a light switch to be constantly used on and off. So there can be issues related to that, correct?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And like we were saying earlier, this podcast is for RVers and technicians. I think we are rapidly losing our campground owner audience at this point because that point you're making. The breaker is not. It turns power off, turns power on, but it's not designed quite the same as a light switch. And so there's not necessarily 100,000 throws between failures kind of thing. Basically weakens the breaker a little bit each time you do that. To your point, it's going to be fine for a couple hundred, maybe 1,000. Campground owners, tune back in for next week when you'll hear maintenance consumable, kind of tips you should be doing. In other words, though it might wear a little on the breaker, it's fine, it's safer, it's the best way to do it overall. Just be aware that breakers don't last forever and they need to be changed out, but it's the price of being safe.
And we always want to be safe around our RVs. A lot of a lot of safety concerns that we want to be paying attention to as RV owners. So, Joe, you and I are both keeping pretty busy in our mobile RV technician businesses. Share us your call of the week, if you will. What's an interesting call or educational call or a humorous call that you've had?
Yeah, so thanks for that. Because that reminds me, speaking of electrical issues, I called this week. I got a customer with a 25-foot travel trailer calls me up and says, "Yeah, man, thing works great at a campground. I came home and plugged it in immediately following my trip, and now I only have half the circuits working." And um, gentleman knew enough to realize I have a 50 amp rig, so I have two hot legs coming in, and so something's going on one of those hot legs. So calls me out and get to his house where he's got it all set up. And sure enough, first thing I do is I go to the power distribution panel and confirm, yep, the problem is not downstream of there. It is in the power distribution panel in that only one leg is hot coming in. So I go
Hmm.
back outside the rig, go to the side of his house, and immediately I'm suspect because we're not in a campground. Did he wire this up properly, or do you have an electrician wire his home properly? So unplug from where he is at the house, confirm, yep, he's got power, 120 volts on both the hot legs on the house side. So welcome to RV Tech 101 here. You narrow down the problem by following the trail of voltage. So we know there is power at the house. There's not in the RV. What's in between? He has a big giant 50 amp extension cord, effectively. So I start checking the surge suppressor, of course, and the installed cord. Those are all fine. Get down to the extension cord in between, and we found the problem. There was no continuity on the cord. I think the end had wiggled around a little too much,
Mm.
become disconnected in the female end of it. Easily verified with a voltmeter by checking continuity from one end of the cord to the other. Sure enough, identified his problem there. So that was my kind of basic call, but a good one and a good lesson learned for others. if you're plugging in at your house, or even some troubleshooting logic there. But that kind of thing probably helps you out too, John, right?
You bet. And actually, I have a question for you. So, in this particular instance, the shore cord for this rig, obviously, it had the male end plugging into the pedestal, if you will, or in this case, the house power. And then he had a female end of the cord that plugged into the outside or maybe in one of the bays of the rig. It was not hardwired in, correct?
Sort of. The extension cord literally was an extension cord, male on one end, female on the other, laying out in the middle of the
Oh, I
yard.
gotcha.
The
Okay.
female end is what he was plugging his hardwired factory cord into.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, so we literally found the
Gotcha.
problem
Okay. All right.
standing in the
Because
dead
what's good for
center
our
of his front
listeners to
yard.
know because what's good for our listeners to know is that, and I saw this elsewhere just recently, is that your shore cord, if it has, the male plug on one end that goes into the pedestal, and then you have the female end that you attach to the rig. So the cord
Right,
can be kind of rolled up independently. It's not permanently attached to the
right,
rig.
right.
Both the male and the female ends of those cords are replaceable in the field if there's an issue. But this was in the extension cord from the house to the actual RV cord.
Yes, exactly. And to your point, I know you and I have both worked on replacing cord ends, and that's a good thing for our listeners to know. It That's kind of right on the border. You could do it yourself if you're comfortable, have a decent set of tools, comfortable working with a little bit of wiring. You can replace your own end, but if you're not, it can be stiff wire, especially on a 50 amp cord. It can require some extra finger dexterity. If that's the kind of thing you want to let a professional come out and work on, certainly wouldn't fault you for that. That's kind of what I would define as right on the line between competent DIY and an easy call for a pro. What do you think of that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And since we have kind of an electrical theme going here, and we have some more electrical theme coming up here, I'm going to change my call of the week from what I was thinking to an electrical call because this also has to do with the pedestal. A
Okay.
client calls up and says, "Hey, look, I don't have power coming into my rig." So the first thing I'm thinking is, again, always follow the flow of electricity. What's going on at the pedestal? And he's telling me that, oh, well, I was plugging in my plug and I pulled out my plug and a little bit of the ground tip like didn't come out with the plug.
It
And so
stayed in
he
the
wasn't
outlet?
sure if that made a difference or not. Yes. Yep.
Wow.
And so, but it's plugging in and out and he thinks it's all good. So, but he was a little concerned. So he did the right thing and he called the campground maintenance staff and they came over with a multimeter and they checked all of the connections in the outlet itself. They're like, no, you're good. You got 120 coming in. This was on a 30 amp rig. So, but he's can't run his air conditioning and he's, doesn't have power the way he should. So I get out there and, he'd given me that little bit of clue about this little bit of piece of metal that disappeared in his mind inside the outlet. I test the outlet. It's all good. Everything's acting the way it should on the 50 amp plug. Excuse me, the 30 amp. Check some other things and it just really kind of piqued my interest. So I had to get my other 30 amp extension cord and plug that into his so I could access the next pedestal over at the campground. And
Oh,
boom,
good idea.
everything was working fine. Okay. So the problem is that little bit of metal. And here's an example of it. Again, we don't know none of us, when we pull into an RV resort, RV campground, we don't know the actual history of the pedestal we are plugging into. And that's why these electrical issues are so important that we're maintaining our idea of being safe using our emergency management system, a watchdog, or whatever brand you're using, plugging that into your pedestal to make sure you have the proper voltage and everything, maintaining good quality cords, keeping them clean. All these things that we'll be talking about in future episodes are so important. But in this case, you know, he could have up and left, and the next person coming in, they would have plugged into the 30 amp and they wouldn't have had service either. And the campground would have kept saying, whoa, look, but it tests good. Well, there's something is breaking down there, and you verify that in this case by going to another pedestal. We had good power, everything ran right. So now we've isolated the pedestal, and now it's up to the campground to go in and actually replace that 30 amp outlet. So we have a good electrical theme going here. And to keep it
Yeah, I
going,
love that.
one of our regular sessions of the one of the regular sessions of the Smart RV podcast will be our tool time, because God knows we all love tools. We need some tools. And Joe, if you were if you were recommending to an RVer some tools that they should have, that every RVer should have, what's one of the tools that you would recommend?
John, every RVer has to have a multimeter. It's probably going to come up many times in lots of discussions here, and I get it. When I was just a civilian RVer driving around with no formal RV education, I didn't always have my multimeter with me. But nowadays, I consider it an essential piece of kit and recommend anyone, because without even a low-end multimeter that at least checks voltage and amperage, you can't see electricity under normal circumstances. You don't really want to. If it's arcing and you can see it, that's bad. But you can't tell what's going on. We'll probably have some tips on how to use them more in the future. But if you at least have a multimeter with you, you can do some, and you have an issue, you can find someone in the campground around that maybe can help you. You can check on a couple of videos online. You can bring your owner's manual with you. There's just lots and lots of real basics you can eliminate right off the bat, even with the most low-end multimeter. Again, we'll go into more details on future episodes on that, but my hot tip of the week, my tool of the week, is definitely going to be for every RVer to carry even a basic multimeter does volts and amperage with them. So to add to
So
that
I
multimeter,
got to
John,
share
what
this
would you
story
throw
with
in?
you.
Okay.
Well, before I get to my tool, I got to tell you, this is a great story. So I get a phone call from a client just this past week. Hey, our water pump isn't working. And we were quite a distance away. So there was really more trying to do some remote technical support. And I'm like, well, do you happen to have a multimeter with you? And the client was awesome. She's like, yeah, I do, but I don't know how to use it.
Oh, what a
I'm
great
like,
call.
hey, we are 90% there. So I said, send me a photograph of your multimeter, text me a photo of your multimeter, and then also text me a photo of the wires, how they're attached to your water pump. And of course the water pump was buried in like all the plumbing lines, super hard to get to. Anyway, I get the photos. I'm like, all right, now I see this dial, turn it counterclockwise to the volts DC, and it should have a straight line, and the dotted line underneath, that's DC. And I'm see on the other side, you got the squiggly line, that's A. So anyway, I'm giving her a little tutorial how to use the multimeter. And then I'm like, take those prongs and stick them into the plugs. You got the black wire one, you got the red wire one.
Right.
And she was able, to self-diagnose that she had power going to the water pump. And so as a result, it was like, okay, 99.9% sure it's just a failed water pump. They do that. And so then the next day when we met, I made sure I had the water pump with me and we swapped it out. But we were a big step ahead simply because she had, and it was very simple. It's probably a $30, less than $40 multimeter, probably from someplace like Harbor Freight or something like that.
Right.
And so speaking of Harbor Freight, my tool of the week, and actually it's my tool of virtually every single day, probably every single call. And it is my Harbor Freight flexible,
Oh, look at that.
rotating, magnetic base, rechargeable
Fancy.
flashlight. It's got a big flashlight. If I turn it on, lots of light. It has a little
Wow.
tip light. You can swivel it. It goes everywhere. And a lot of RV bays are dark.
Yep.
If someone calls up and says, I don't have power, you're going to go inside the RV. It's going to be dark. My life experienced eyes like to have some extra light. And so, but this is the guy. Okay. And this is, I think $29.95. normal price, Harbor Freight. I carry 2 of these, so I've always got one that's charged. And then, related to this, I also carry a headlamp, which is rechargeable, because sometimes it's good to go hands-free, and you can never
Yeah.
have too much light.
Yeah.
So there's my
Love that.
tool tip of the week. So,
I
we're getting
love
close to
that. I've
wrapping
got
up,
a couple of those also.
first. Yes, you do, don't you? Yeah. Well, and again, a good flashlight is something that every RVer needs to have, at least one. For $40, or excuse me, $30, you get tremendous utility and flexibility out of this guy. But any type of flashlight, and more the better. I actually carry one, two, three, four flashlights in my truck, and occasionally I'm using the flashlight on my iPhone too. So light is good. So as we get ready to wrap up our opening episode of the Smart RV podcast, why don't you just give us a little bit of vision for our podcast, Joe, moving
Yeah, no,
forward?
thanks for that. This has really been electrically illuminating. Maybe it should be the title of this podcast. And we're going to keep the theme going. John and I have been doing some research and really delving deep into AI. We're developing lots of tips and tricks that we're going to share with our customers and bring along to you in the future. So look for more artificial intelligence in the RV industry coming soon.
And as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, in the future, we're going to be also interviewing RVers with vast experience in different areas of RVing. We're going to be talking with some of our fellow technicians, one, maybe to help the other technicians that are watching our podcast, but also so consumers can understand a little bit more about the mobile tech industry and what mobile techs can provide and kind of what's involved and how to best utilize a mobile technician's services. Then also we hope to have, we plan to have some industry insiders in the future also. So with
Oh,
that, I
I
think we're
can't wait to
wrapping up
see that.
episode 1 of the Smart RV podcast.
All right. No,
Joe,
that's excellent.
stay
Thanks,
dry in
John.
the humidity.
I will do my
All
best,
right.
and
We will
you
catch you all
you
next
drink
time
plenty of
then.
water.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye.